Good evening and welcome to Studio 13. Hi, this is Tom Brennan once again. It is my extreme pleasure to bring to you Bob Dobbs, media ecologist. Bob?
Tetrad manager.
Finally appearing on the air, corporealized.
First tactile image of Bob.
And you're looking great. You're a great dresser, so you should utilize the visual form more often.
Well, it took time.
Took time. Selfhood.
No, it's, you know, I'm 73 now, and thanks to the D-cell, I don't look at...
The water.
Yes, the little stone in there made by Joe Dunn Sloan not only purifies but energizes water and slows down the aging process. So most people wouldn't believe I'm 73, but as time unfolds, it'll be proven.
As Nicholson said to the boy on the horse in Chinatown,
yes,
when he goes to the dry riverbed, he says, "What goes on here at night?" And the boy goes, "The water, when it comes." Nicholson says, "The water, when it comes."
That's River Run, the first line of Finning Its Way.
Run, yeah. And past Adam and Eve's. Eves and Adams, excuse me.
In the satellite world today, they call the broadcasting, not broadcasting, but the broadcasting phenomenon of grabbing images down, they call it the river of video. So you got to look at Finning Its Wake, anticipating the river video within the satellite medium.
And that's a catch-22 itself.
Ooh, catch-14.
If it works, we're probably not doing it. On this show, anyway. Now, a lot of people don't know that Dylan, when he saved himself from the ravages of being like Bob, dressing well and being natty and being very 1965 hipster, something that Bob invented, incidentally. Dylan, when he retrieved himself from that phase via motorcycle accident, precipitous, he appears in Nashville, and the first line, one of the great lines on Nashville Skyline is Bob saying, "Is it rolling, Bob?" Now, obviously, he's talking to you there via the medium of poetry.
And doesn't Frank answer back on the 77 tour?
Want to buy some cave paintings, Bob?
Yeah.
Want to buy some Mandy's, Bob? Well, he changes all the time.
Oh, Frank and Bob. Now, I mentioned this in the memo to Prince Charles in my book, June 4th, 1990. I talked...
Who was this Prince Charles? That guy with the ears?
The what?
The guy with the ears.
Yes.
He used to be married to the babe with the legs.
Yeah, and there's also a pop...
See, they're all discarnate.
There's a musician named Prince Charles, right? Isn't there a musician? I don't mean that, but I mean...
Is he a Jamaican?
British.
Oh, British.
I mean British royalty, Prince Charles.
Yeah. He used to wear a beetle wig in '65.
He's who I beat out in the Secret Council 10 in 1988, so I've been teasing him ever since. The people, here's some names. The people that I've...
We didn't name names on the last show, for those of you who really, really greedily lapped up that show. Bob created the tension in the state by telling me off air everyone involved in the JFK assassination. And not one was a surprise to either of us.
The problem is that the people involved in the Kennedy assassination never heard of. But I can talk names in this context, who's on the Secret Council 10, because there are figureheads. And they are the late Prince Taxis, Mr. Romanov, whose front man was Gorbachev, and Prince Charles, and myself. Those are the four factions in the Secret Council 10 up to 88. And once I locked down Bob Rule in March 88, you have the manifestation of the problems of befalling the other three after that. I think Turn Taxis, my old buddy, your enemies are your best friends when you're in the Secret Council 10, because it's a corporate institution of utterly unlike entities, because the electric implosion forces you to work with your opposites. Those you normally wouldn't want to rub elbows with at any dinner table. Or people who are in earlier phases of the corruption you went through several generations ago.
Oh, so you got shed of that?
Yeah. We did.
Well, it's easier because you're from a noble lineage, where many of these have to...
Not a noble lineage. My father, who looks exactly like the image that Reverend Stang uses.
Yeah.
He must have seen that in my wallet in 78, 79, because... it's ironic that he's using a picture of my father.
So we did a David Furry thing, when Furry ended up with Oswald's library card.
Let's not go into that. No, I'll hold it.
I'll hold your wallet gladly. It's probably bigger than mine at this point.
Yeah, now, so we're talking, why did I bring that up? Prince Charles...
Because you're probably naming names.
Yeah, I'm not lineage. No, my father was a butler.
Unnameable.
My father was a butler. A lineage of butlers, or like a Duchampian waiter, from way back into the 1700s. I mean, there's a reference to my family's name, Dobbs, in Charles Dickens' short piece called The Toady Tree, 1855. You can look up in the collected essays of Charles Dickens. That's a reference to my family. And it's about the toady tree in the oligarchical system. So I'm not of noble lineage per se, but I have been molded within that environment, and my grandparents and parents and going back generations have. So, Prince Charles, in 1990, Prince turned taxes, died, all right? Then in 91, Gorbachev was out,
Right.
okay? Then
On the lecture circuit.
yes, which is where that's going from hardware communism, politicians, to software communism, editorialists or editors, right, in the lecture circuit. And then you have the third and final homeopathic collapse, when in June 92, 6 weeks after Nelson Thal and those interpreters of me in Toronto put out the CD, Bob's New Ecology, April 22nd, 1992. 6 weeks later, the book came out, the biography of Di and her bulimia and suicide attempts. That destroyed the image of Prince Charles. And we're talking, I can name names because these are images. Vanity Fair used to celebrate Gloria turning taxes. Prince turned taxes.
What a doll.
Wife, and she was known as Miss TNT. And as that faded out after 87, she wasn't that prominent in the Vanity Fair social scene in New York. You have...
She was darn good on a boat in the Mediterranean, though.
Yes. And Mick Jagger was a close friend of theirs. And the thing is that you have the other three competitors have gone down in their image weight. Their bureaucracy is still there bothering me, but since 92, and especially in 95, which adds up to 14, which is significant because we're moving from an archetype of Club 22 to Club 14, and that's why we're on the Pacific, and that's why Bob can show up.
Do you know that Catch 22 was originally called Catch 14? And Leon Uris was at the same book house about ready to publish Mila. Oh, excuse me, it's Mila 18.
Okay.
Well, it was originally called Catch 18.
That's the tetrad.
Mila
22, obsolescence 7, retrieves 18, and flips into 14. Okay, but
I made a mistake with that, because, do you know this Jerry Fialka guy? He always is very fond of quoting Coleman Hawkins, if you don't make mistakes, you're not really on Studio 13 with Bob Dobbs.
Well, Jerry has a sensibility for, ancient acorns of
Mighty Oaks grow from there.
Of electric folklore.
Electric folklore.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I alluded to Dylan earlier in a Nashville segment.
Oh, which let me come back to this point. No, this is...
Thank you. I'm glad I mentioned that. Then.
Yeah, you brought up the relationship with Frank and Dylan. There's a section in here
You know where that will lead?
Yes.
To an exegesis of Brennan via Dobbs.
That's right. And what you have here, on July 29th, 1966, I was here in L.A.
Dylan's motorcycle accident, was it not?
Yes, July 20th. And what happened on that day? The Great Guambo concert put on by the Mothers. So you see, remember in David Wally's biography that Frank...
commercial potential.
Yeah, that Frank said he loved Dylan when he first came out, but then later he thought he was doing it wrong. So Frank
said we can win now because these are on the radio, like a Rolling Stone.
But then he got mad that Dylan wasn't doing it right, so he felt there was a role for him. So he comes in, so it's symbolic.
Well, Dylan got into black and white rockabilly, via Blonde on Blonde, which you would assume was a color text.
Yes.
But Frank was already... Well, actually, Frank started color. With
Frank began
he
it
got
all.
very black and white. With
Frank began it all, and he was willing. He's a generous guy. He didn't need the hot lights. He let Bob can carry it, Bob Dylan, and but Dylan got into a problem, so he's knocked out in July 29, 66, and that's when Frank surfaces. July 66 is when Freakout's coming out. Right before he's going to play the Yale Bowl. Yes. I mean, was Skull and Bones behind the motorcycle accident or what? They didn't want him appearing at the Yale Bowl? That's another story. Okay. The point is that July 29, 66, I was involved with a very bizarre operation here in L.A., and one of the characters, a homeless wino we picked up at the Lemon Camp. At the Lemon Camp? Yeah. Picked up down in Carpinteria, where Alan Watts used to take... A literal lemon camp, like James M. Cain, Postman Always Rings Twice, kind of working situation. Yes. Yeah. And he spewed out all this wine on the floor of the Wino Man.